In this video, we're talking all about that $60 billion that's been earmarked for the Disney Parks division. We're going to break it down, talk about it. We got Slimer, we got Mr. Seymour Duck, and the Italiano joining me today on this episode of OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. I have a fantastic panel today. We're talking all about that $60 billion earmarked for the Disney Parks division. We're going to go over all that. But before we do, I'm going to introduce my fantastic panel. I'll start with you, George, the Italiano. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There it is. There it is. And down below, we got Slimer back in the house. Slimer, it's good to see you, buddy.
Hey, good to see you too, man. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I've been a little silly lately. But in doing my silliness, I can always make time for some friends, talk some Disney.
Awesome.
So here I am.
Here you are. It's good to have you. If you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you guys can find me on X at Slime Square 84, and you can find me on Orange Grove 55 sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And Slimer, this week is a big week for you. I think Ghostbusters is coming out on Friday, I believe.
Yeah, it's pretty much my holiday. This is my Christmas, my Halloween, my Kwanzaa, and my Bar Mitzvah, all wrapped into 1 week. So Ghostbusters, it comes out this week. Go see it. You know, it's going to have the old boys in it. So it looks like a good movie. Looks pretty promising. All the reviews from the premiere look pretty good. So yeah.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, if I check it out in theaters, or, George, Seymour, if you guys see it too, maybe even Jay Shear, whatever, we can do maybe like a review show on that. It'd be kind of interesting.
I'm probably going to go Friday.
Okay. Cool.
Sweet.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we'll do a little review. It'll be fun. Seymour Duck, it's always a pleasure and honor having you on, sir, to nerd out with us. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing wonderful, and I'm glad to be here. It's always fun talking to you guys.
Absolutely. We enjoy your company, Seymour. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media, sir.
Oh yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There it is. And Seymour actually had a pretty big morning on X. If you want to let everybody know who replied to you on X, that was wild, man.
Yeah. So I just saw this ad on YouTube, and it was very weird. It was like Mr. Beast AI with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, and I'm like, what is this ad? I'm like, why is YouTube approving it? So I just randomly posted it on X. And I tagged him, not thinking anything, and then I took a nap. I woke up and I got like 1,500 like notifications. I'm like, what is happening? Oh, Mr. Beast responded to it.
That was wild, man. I couldn't believe that. I've never seen. I mean, that was incredible. You must have just replied. You must have tagged him at like the perfect time when he was like just checking his Twitter or something. You know?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I didn't even think he was going to reply. I just tagged him because he was in the video, and I was like, yeah. And I was talking about like how he was using his. Like the AI was using him, but yet he's not getting paid for it.
Yeah, that's wild.
Every time I apply to an ad, it's nothing but spam afterwards. Can't imagine why.
Right, exactly. So let's dive into the topic at hand. This is the $60 billion allocated, right, for the Disney Parks division. I'm going to go ahead and read this real quick. And then Seymour actually has a little breakdown on another tweet, which I think is actually a good jumping off point. And then we can kind of go from there. But Scott Gooston here, friend of the channel. We love Scott. He's like the Disney news, aficionado. He's amazing. But it says here, in a new filing, Disney provided additional information about the company's planned 10-year, $60 billion investment in the experiences segment. A new breakdown of the plan shows 50% at parks and resorts, 20% cruise and other, and 30% on tech and maintenance. It goes on to say that Disney previously revealed 70% of that $60 billion plan is earmarked for capacity expanded investments across the experiences segment. Also in this filing, Disney says the money will be spent on expanding footprint, innovative technology, and reaching new fans across the world. Now, Seymour, you made a great tweet, actually quote retweeting Mr. Goosen, and I'll kind of let you take over, but you say here, seeing a lot of misinformation on operating expenses versus capital expenditures. I'll add some context to help everyone kind of understand it more easily. Now, the reason why I want to start with this, Seymour, and I'll start with you, is because I think that this lays the groundwork really for the whole conversation, you know? So if you want to kind of elaborate on what we're seeing here, I can go down the thread too as we go.
So I'm hearing a lot of chatter on X talking about how they're going to spend like it's almost the same or less than how much they spend on expenses for the park throughout the year. But the thing is, expenses are going to be expensive. If you think about it, think of it like you want to build a McDonald's, a brand new McDonald's. Okay, you got your capital expenditures to build it out. You got everything all set out. You got all the everything built. But the issue is now you have to hire people. You have to do all the marketing after. You have to get all the food. And you have to maintain it. And that's the expenses throughout the year. And that's going to be more every year. You keep spending your money in. Where, the capital that you allocate for that, when you did the investment from the beginning, it's going to be smaller. But at the end, it's just going to help you generate that revenue.
Interesting. And then you go on to say here, it's like maybe like I think a 4-part tweet. It says here, operating expenses include A, salaries, wages, and benefits for employees across various departments. B, maintaining theme parks, resorts, cruises, merchandise, and other guest experiences. And C, I'm going to span this out a little bit, advertising, promotions, and distribution channels to reach audiences worldwide. Now that's operating expenses, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be out like throughout the year. And the company already budgeted for that for throughout the year. And you hear that at every earnings call, how much they're going to spend and all this. But like those cost money. You have to pay those wages. You have to do the advertising. Of course, that's going to be costing a lot of money. Because this is over time, every year you've been spending it. Where if you see in the second part, right, capital expenditures are only one-time investments, not throughout the lifetime of Disney parks.
Interesting. And then you go on to say here, A, operating expenses are recurring costs, like you just said, incurred every business cycle. Capital expenditures are non-recurring. And you finish it off with, while CapEx are crucial for growth and maintaining competitiveness, its spending is spread out over project life cycles, resulting in a lower overall amount compared to the continuous stream of operating expenses. So that was a great thread that you created. I think even our boy Jay Shear actually commented on it, and he said here, and to your points, CapEx are both looked at very favorably as they're generally meant to produce future additional revenue. In other words, new cool stuff for us to experience and spend our money on. Excellent breakdown. So CapEx is kind of the fun stuff. The operating stuff is sort of the non-sexier stuff. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But someone has to pay for them, and Disney's been paying for them, and it's been showing that it's working because their margins are high right now. I think their last quarter was like 35% just from the Disney parks and experiences.
Wow, that's wild. That is absolutely wild. Okay, so Seymour, before I go to Slimer, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this 10-year investment plan? So we got parks and resorts, we got 50%, we got tech and maintenance 30, cruise another 20. Do you think this is a pretty good allocation of these funds, or you think maybe these percentages are a little off in your opinion?
For me, I would have liked more tech, but that's just me. That's just the tech nerd in me. But I think this is great because so I've seen some chatter on X about how why are they spending 30% on maintenance, but I'm like, there's issues on the Disney parks that they need additional funding for, where they need to fix, and how are we going to fix it if we don't put the money into it to fix them?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I hear a lot of complaining on X about how things need work or need improving or fixing or this, that, and the other, and then when Disney goes ahead and earmarks a lot of money to get that stuff taken care of, then there's a bunch of groans like, "Oh, why are they spending money on that?" It's like, come on, we live in the real world. Go ahead, Simon.
Well, not only that, but we don't know what percentage of that is going to be allocated for research and development, or if it even falls under tech and maintenance. I would think that it would. But if you want to see new groundbreaking rides, you're going to have to invest a lot of capital into R&D. These rides just don't come out of nowhere. Otherwise, you're complaining about rides like the Web Shooter ride over in Disneyland, which obviously got bottom of the barrel. That was like, hey, what money do we have left over for a Spider-Man ride? Hey, let's go ahead and give it to this after they allocated it for that really amazing Spider-Man drone. And that's the end result. So either, I mean, if you want to have groundbreaking new tech rides, things that are going to take the Disney parks into the next 10 years and move the park forward and be really innovative, you're going to have to pump a lot of money into these bad boys. They're not cheap.
I agree on that, because with the 50% to expand out the parks, yeah, I mean, that's great. But like, what is it of, that is going to be the expansion? You don't want 15,000 spinner rides, so in order to be able to get, what Slimer's saying, these real immersive storytelling kind of attractions like Rise of the Resistance, Cosmic Rewind, and what have you, in order to get those immersive storytelling attractions, yeah, you need the R&D to tie along with it. But what I find interesting is, and a lot of people are kind of like talking about it, but not talking about it, where it's like with the 20%, even with like the cruise line, I feel like with that amount of number, because they're saying that that's still part of the 70%, where it's part of expanding. So they're already at 5 ships. They're about to move into 8. But I feel like those ships are, well, the one ship, the Avenger, is 75% done. That was the ship that was bought under Bob Chapek. That's going to sell out in, I believe, Southeast Asia, in
Singapore or something, right?
Yeah. The Treasure, and then the third Triton class ship was already put into the equation before even Chapek was CEO, when he was still chairman of the park. So this 20% for me is not really a lot, but what that actually tells me is that's probably going to be enough for a 9th ship.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, Seymour, that kind of plays to what you were talking about too, between CapEx and operating and stuff like that, where it's like George was saying, where it's like that ship. What was it called? The Avenger, George?
The Avenger.
Chapek bought that ship from a company that went bankrupt, I believe, for like pennies on the dollar. Now, when they're investing billions, obviously it's not going to cost. I mean, it was already halfway completed. So what would that fall under? Would that be under CapEx or this operating cost to finish this ship off, Seymour?
It would depends if they bought it. Like, if they already, I would have to look back at the numbers to see how much they already invested into it. Yeah. Most likely they already allocated the money for the budget throughout the year to do those maintenance in their operating expenses. Most likely that's already happening. But like this chart says, you still have 30% for tech and maintenance as well. That's not just for the parks, for the overall experience division.
Interesting. So then I also wanted to cover this real quick. Give me just a moment. Here we go. Okay, so it says Disney is investing strategically in our most profitable segment, experiences. In September 23, we announced a $60 billion investment plan over 10 years, including capital to expand domestic and international parks and cruise line capacity, right? Investment will build upon our strong track record of generating outsized returns, and will focus on accelerating storytelling by utilizing our wealth of intellectual property, untapped stories, and unmatched creativity, expanding our footprint. Okay, it says also investing in innovative technology to improve the guest experience, which I'm assuming would be like apps and things like that. I know fans don't like that stuff, but I mean, that's what they're probably talking about. And then reaching new fans around the world. For every park guest today, we believe there are 10 more customers with Disney affinity who don't visit the parks in a given year. And that's something that I really want to highlight here, is that a lot of fans in our community, they're in this bubble where it's like, if it's not my home resort, it doesn't matter. If it's not Disneyland or it's not Walt Disney World, who cares what they do overseas? Overseas is a big deal. Overseas, you're like they're saying here, they want to reach new fans around the world. In order to stay relevant as a brand, you got to grow, your business. You can't just keep singing to the same choir all the time. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about that, George, in terms of like this reaching out to new fans and kind of, I get it. A lot of fans don't want Disney to spend as much overseas, or they're mad that they're spending so much overseas. But I mean,
So for me, yes, I do agree. They do have to expand. They do, want to, carry on, the Walt Disney legacy overseas. Although I will say, though, for recently with the domestic parks, they do need to sing a little bit of notes into these parks, just a little bit, just because it seems like that they have been doing quite well in the international. But I mean, if you look at the international numbers, you can see why Disney is leaning towards that, because they just put Zootopia in Shanghai. Even though that Disney isn't funding it, it's coming from the OLC for Tokyo. But I mean, the Imagineers are still working on these projects. So you have the Fantasy Springs that's just going to be opening at Tokyo Disney Sea. So they're definitely still going to put forth into the international parks. I think I had mentioned it to you, OG, about a month ago. I actually have even a funny feeling that another park is due to be soon. I feel like it for Shanghai. I don't know why, but because they said they had land there already prior to when they were building Shanghai Disneyland. They had land already set aside for future development for possibly a second theme park in Shanghai.
Yeah, that would be interesting. What are your thoughts on this, Slimer?
So I can't remember if it was the third quarter or fourth quarter earnings call of last year, but Iger had mentioned that there was about 700 million untapped Disney fans globally that the parks were not reaching. And I think that they're going to have to make some announcements here pretty soon that is going to start to attract or excite these untapped Disney fans. They're going to have to find a way to bring these into market. Not only just bring them into market, but make them lifelong fans before Universal Studios does. And as we know, Universal Studios is expanding at a very rapid rate. Once they put shovels into the ground in the United Kingdom, it's probably going to be only about 2 to 3 years before that park is up and running. So, with regard to George's comment about bringing, these very popular international IPs like Avatar, Avengers, Frozen, Star Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy, basically everything on this list, if you notice, is an internationally recognized IP and isn't just bringing in big revenue for the Disney company on a domestic level when it comes to box office numbers specifically. So they are really looking at an international footprint. They're going to have to be very expedient with the way they do this. And that's going to be by tapping into their core intellectual properties. I think the Mandalorian roller coaster is probably a really good example of a way they can excite the European Disney community, for example, or the European Star Wars community. If they can stay ahead of the curve and try to bring, the more thrill level theme park fans into the Disney brand, into the Disney market, and hold them, it's going to make it harder for Universal Studios to try to take those people, because they're not what do you call non-loyal branded customers. They've already developed loyalty. And as you know, companies that try to take or try to take a customer from a brand that already has established loyalty is going to have to spend a multiple factor of at least 3 to 5 times more to take that person away from that brand they're already loyal to. The other thing I like to point out here, and this is something we actually discussed with the first $60 billion video on, it was my first video on here, is that there was a 3 times multiplier with return on investment capital, and there was a 4 time multiplier with operating income. That's a pretty steady level of growth over 10 years. You could probably do more than that. I don't know if they can really stomach the bill, and I don't know if you'd want to actually see any growth more rapid with that, with the fact that the Disney parks, theme parks in general, even though they're more popular right now, they do see lower attendance overall despite higher revenue. But if there were ever any sort of an economic downturn, those parks empty out pretty quick. And that's going to mean more losses for the Disney company to try to maintain these attractions when they're permanently closed, like how we saw, Disneyland over, well, not just Disneyland, but Disneyland, Shanghai, Hong Kong. I mean, it was like half of their Disney operations were shut down for over a year. So there are some dangers with trying to push growth too fast, too soon over a 10-year span. Not only that, but we saw so much growth over the last 10 years in terms of expansion. They don't really have to duplicate that same amount of growth. Really, I mean, the upshot of this is they really only have to achieve about half the growth that we saw over the last 10 years. When you really take into consideration all the resorts, the cruise expansion, the ride expansions, the Skyliner, the Star Wars. I mean, you go on and on and on and on about how much they actually invested into the domestic parks overall and Disneyland. So, this idea that they need to double what they've done over the last 10 years and that they're not going to be able to do with the $30 billion due to inflation, I think that's a false start. I don't think that's a really good take, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be able to accomplish this 3 times ROIC and 4 times OI over 10 years, and that's going to put them in a really good spot. And what tells me that is, like Seymour said, the 34% margins that we're seeing tells them that they don't need to really invest more than $30 billion over into their experiences division over the next 10 years. And I think that's playing it conservatively, but I think they need to play it at least just a little bit conservatively, because trying to grow too fast is too dangerous.
No, it is. It absolutely. Go ahead, George.
And also speaking to Slimer's point about tapping into the market of the potential Disney fans that are out there, but they can't necessarily reach, is why I feel like Disney's utilizing the strategy of having a second D23 fan event this year after the one in August. They're also having another one in November, but it's going to be held in Brazil. So then you're going to be tapping into the South American market, that everyone that could be surrounding Brazil or in Brazil, to maybe kind of test the waters to actually see, okay, how many Disney fans can we get to come to this this first ever D23 event in Brazil? Like, what are the guests' response to it? So they may be testing the waters to kind of see, and maybe based off of it, if it's positive reviews for future development, possibly in South America.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And what, anything you want to elaborate on Seymour? Any thoughts on this particular?
Slimer took the words right out of my mouth. But there was a few points I wanted to make. Was that I agree what he said about the IPs. When it goes through the parks, I am considered like a normie. I don't usually go to the parks, but I see Universal spending a lot of money on, like, just even on the Nintendo IPs, and it's converting me to go, instead of going to Disney World, to go to Universal Studios. And I've never considered Universal Studios before, or even in Japan, it's like with the Pokemon IP, right? I never wanted to go to, like, I want to go to Japan, but now I have another reason to go to Japan. I go see Pokemon IP, I see Nintendo, I see all Mario. Like, that's going to bring me in. So if Disney can do that as well, invest into their IP throughout the parks, of course, that's beneficial. Also, they talked about investing into tech. Like I mentioned at the start, like, I'm a tech nerd, and they've been investing into a lot of robots and AI. Even today at NVIDIA's event, they showed off their robots, their Star Wars robots that just can walk, like, they can walk free through the parks without any controller, and you can interact with them. And that's the type of investments that Disney is going to do with Disney research and Imagineering.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, that stuff is really cool. I like that stuff. I saw that video today. It was really cool. Those little droids and stuff. Really awesome stuff. And actually, we got some more news. Like you said, George, a lot of fans on Twitter in our little community, they are complaining. Like you said, the international parks are getting everything, right? It seems to be, and Disney does do this though. Like, I've been in this community, I've said it so many times, for such a long time, since AOL dial-up, right? I always say it. It's been a long time. And Disney does this where they kind of focus on one resort or maybe two resorts for, like, like almost like obsessively, and get that up and running or going, and then they'll let that sit for a while, and they'll focus on something else. We saw that a few years ago with DCA. They have pumped $1 billion+ into DCA, and Walt Disney World didn't really get much during that time period. But then they switched the focus, and this is how they operate, right? But here's the thing. Oh, real quick, George.
Go.
But here's the thing. So right now there is an international focus, but we got some news today, right? Didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
We got some news today that they actually are starting to shift a little bit now to, well, Disneyland, obviously, because they're doing that whole Disneyland Forward thing, right? There's big things, I think, happening there. But even Walt Disney World, we got some news. Go ahead, George, before we...
And before you segue into that, and to your point, OG, of what you were just explaining, they kind of do this rotational thing where they may be focusing on one resort over another, one particular park over another. So a lot of times the way that people are perceiving the $60 billion and breaking it down percentage wise, down to the dollar, down to the penny, you can't necessarily do that, because Disney could be having in their own mindset, so much of it can go for, depending on what the project is. One project may cost more money than another. So to say, okay, well, they can divide it up into equal parts and it's not a whole lot of money, you can't have that mentality, because not one project is going to cost the same over the other.
Well, and they never allocate their projects like that. Like, I've seen people do that, like, well, 60 billion over, or 30 billion over 10 years. And if you allocate it equally for each resort for that 10 years, each resort only gets this amount of money. It's like, yeah, okay, but that's not how Disney has historically operated. Like we just talked about, like a lot of times they dump a ton of money and focus on one area, then they'll take a couple years off, and then they'll dump a ton of money into another one. So, how you allocate it makes all the difference. Go ahead, Slimer. I'm sorry, brother.
Well, I like to also point out that competition is not just stiff in the United States, but it's stiff overseas as well. I mean, look at what they're doing. Look at Universal Studios Beijing, for example. Universal Studios Beijing is top tier. I mean, if we're talking about which parks are the best internationally, you have to include that in like some sort of a top 5 list.
Absolutely.
There's no way it doesn't fall on that category. And so these companies are really racing to capture a market which hasn't been captured yet, because whoever has to try to capture that market second is going to have to spend way more money than the person that captured it first. Seymour Duck just said it right now. He doesn't know if he wants to go to Disney World. He doesn't want to go to Nintendo. Now is the first time that he's actually feeling a pull more towards, I said Nintendo, Universal Studios, because of Nintendo, right? So that's why you're seeing Universal Disney World being bullish about roller coasters now suddenly over in Europe. Alton Towers just dropped a new roller coaster, which looks amazing. And like I said, Universal Studios is going to come out, and they're going to come out and build a park in probably like 3 years over the United Kingdom. And, we know Disney likes to take their time when it comes to actual ride construction. So I say all that to say that, keep in mind, guys, competition is stiff, not just here in the United States, but everything that's going on here with Universal Studios is happening in China. It's happening in the United Kingdom. It's happening in all of Europe, right? It's not just here. It's stiff, and these companies are duking it out over potentially tens of billions of dollars. I mean, like that last slideshow you had it on, they were looking at a 10% increase in margins. If Disney can get 44% margins, you know what that means for the experiences division? Like, that's ridiculous.
It's wild. It's wild, and that's the thing. A lot of fans don't understand that they're not in the CEO chair. They don't understand that it's not just about your home park, or whatever. Like, this is a global company, and they got to address, like you said, Slimer, the competition overseas that's getting really hot out there. You have to address this global market. You can't just, focus on the domestic, because that's like, that's what we're into. I mean, like, look, I would love to get in like $9 billion here into Anaheim. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. But it's not realistic. Disney's a global company. They got to compete everywhere.
It's really myopic. It's really myopic to just say, hey, we just need investments in the domestic parks. Basically, you're just looking at, one piece of the puzzle. You're not paying attention to everything else that's going on around you,
Yeah, well said. Anything you want to add to that, Seymour? I'm sorry, brother.
Oh, I was just going to say I agree, because Disney caters to a worldwide audience, not just North America.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And a lot of those worldwide audiences are new to Disney. A lot of people in China, they didn't necessarily grow up with the Disney brand. It's really important to kind of tap into that market and secure the next generation of Disney fan. I think that's what Disney's talking about with this, about reaching out to new fans and stuff. That's so vital. But we did, speaking of domestic parks, we did get some good news today. I'm actually really happy for the Florida fans today, because I'm telling you, Florida's been we've been like Disneyland. There's been a lot more kind of meat on them bones. We get the Disneyland Forward stuff. We know things are coming. With Florida, it's been a little iffier. I think because a lot of it, I think with the DeSantis stuff, is creating a lot of uncertainty over there. You know what I'm saying?
Disneyland got the meat on the bones. Disney World became impotent.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So this is from Behind the Thrills. Definitely go check them out on Twitter. It says here, looks like work on a major Animal Kingdom project will be starting soon. A new SFWMD permit was filed for a 5-acre trailer compound just north of the Cali River Rapids, with infrastructure improvements along the BOH roadway leading directly to Dino Land. Now, this is interesting because we've heard a lot of stuff from Daddy Josh at like 3 conventions now about how, the what if, the maybe, the blue sky, we could do this, we could do that. But it was always focused on like Animal Kingdom and like this Dino Land area. Now, we still don't know what's going to go in here, but there is work. Like, they're already setting up kind of like a home base for like the trailers and the Imagineers and the construction. That's interesting. This is confirmation. They have something that they want to build.
They know what it is now. They actually already, even though they didn't make that greenlit announcement to us yet, but to be setting everything up, they already know what blueprint that they decided to go for. Now, is it the Encanto Indiana Jones route? We don't know. It's a possibility. Josh D'Amaro didn't really give a full clarification at the Destination D23. But it's a possibility. It may be that. It's possibility they may have went back to the original concept where it's Moana and Zootopia, or it may be something completely different. There may be a third piece of concept that they were working on, and that's going to be the big surprise for us. Either, which a lot of people are saying, they have 2 big days coming up with the shareholders meeting and the D23 Ultimate Fan Event in August. So, I mean, they may possibly give us a little hint, because we already kind of know like an idea of what's going to go here. So they may utilize this for an announcement during the shareholders meeting.
Could be.
Or they may just save the whole thing for the D23 fan event. Or what they even could do, maybe they'll take a piece out of each concept art. Maybe they'll take Indiana Jones and Moana out of the 2 and move Encanto and Zootopia somewhere else.
They might even do they might, because Pelt is like basically like circling the drain right now. Let's be honest, and Seymour can elaborate more on that, because there was actually some news today on that whole thing. But like, if they wanted to, they could even announce this like maybe a couple weeks before the annual shareholder meeting. Some bit like, hey, so we have these concrete plans for Walt Disney World. This is what we got, and going into that annual meeting would give a lot of momentum. You know what I'm saying? So that's interesting, but it looks like they're serious. And I've even been hearing, and I can't say details because George, we have a mutual friend,
yes,
who, is kind of up on the food chain, you know what I'm saying? And this person has been telling us that like things are happening at Disney. We actually have 2 friends that's saying that this is like they're moving and shaking with the parks division, the experiences division,
and these 2 people have no connection of conversation whatsoever. We heard this from 2 different conversations, 2 different people,
right,
2 different times, and I think it's quite telling to say that there's some big moves being made, and the D23 fan event is going to be the starting point for that.
Yeah, hopefully. Slimer, I'll start with you, man. This is interesting news, man. Animal Kingdom is my favorite park. I love this. I fell in love with this park. It's amazing. I'm excited. I'm not even a Floridian. I'm excited. But what are your thoughts on this news that they filed permits for basically a staging area for Imagineers and construction?
Yeah, well, I'm cautiously optimistic because we really don't know what this is yet, right? I mean, for all we know, they might be building a Skyliner into Animal Kingdom. So
That's true.
we don't know what it is. Now, if it ends up being a Skyliner in an Animal Kingdom, I'll take that. That's a win in my opinion.
That's
It's
a win
not-
also for me too.
Yeah, that's not it's not a new land, but it means that the Skyliner transportation is being expanded, which is going to make it easier to get throughout the park. Plus, it'd be a little bit more of an extended ride. So, like riding from, wherever the hub, let's say over by, Jesus Christ, what's the name of it? That Italian hotel or the French one, the Riviera,
the Riviera.
yeah, the Italian. Don't make me put the mustache on. All right?
Oh, you better do it. You better do it. You better do it. Oh, there we go.
Hey, Papa Giorgio, eh?
Exactly.
By the way, this is a mustache cut out from a pizza cardboard box.
That's awesome. Holy cannoli, man. Holy
cannoli.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. Now I will say this. So when I met Jack I bumped into him. It wasn't a planned meeting. Bumped into him. I was like, "Hey Jack, how's it going?" I asked him, this is, almost a year ago now. I said, "Hey, do you think Indiana Jones is going to come to Animal Kingdom?" Because he had just done a video about it. He's like, "Nah, I don't think so." This was right after Dial of Destiny came out. He's like, "I think it's not. I still think it is." So Jack, if Indiana Jones ends up going in Animal Kingdom, you owe me a beer. If it's the other way around, I'll buy you a beer, my friend. But I still think it's going to be Indiana Jones. It's too it's too easy. It's like, why wouldn't you do Indiana Jones? Now, granted, it can't be the Disneyland version. It can't be, one of the versions that already exist. It has to be a new iteration of the Disney of the Indiana Jones ride. But I think it's going to be that. Now, I kind of feel what George is saying too. They could drop Encanto completely. They just might cut it from the budget, just flat out.
Wow.
And I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, they do this with just about every new land and every new attraction where like they say, "Hey, here's the principal idea," but then by the end of it, you get a stripped down version. So if there's going to be a budget cut to it, I do believe it's going to be Encanto, just for the mere fact that the life of Encanto hasn't pulled in nearly as much revenue as Indiana Jones, and it's just not an evergreen. It's just not an evergreen brand. Encanto was the brand. It was an IP of that year. They haven't been able to duplicate it yet. It's not like Frozen where it's a proven product. So if they're going to cut one project, I think it would be Encanto, and probably swap it out with the Moana, given the reaction of the last the trailer. So
you just read my mind. I was just going to ask you about Moana, because Moana seems to be an evergreen thing because it's crushing it on Disney Plus, and it's a massive thing. So and I think George, you mentioned it earlier on in the show, where it's like maybe they swap it out with Moana. I mean, and that wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea. And Indiana Jones would be awesome because you could change the kind of storyline where maybe Indy's looking for like some like dino egg or something. Like he's an archaeologist, he's looking for some crazy dino egg or whatever. You can kind of dive into this kind of thing where it like fits the park if they do it right. I think it could fit the park absolutely. And you already have the dinosaur, that attraction there with the same layout, the same ride vehicles, the whole shebang. Like you said, Slimer, it wouldn't be that hard to kind of retheme that thing. Go ahead.
I just have to, and speaking of dinosaur, I just have to just get this out right now, because this is what kind of drives me nuts about the Disney fandom. You hear nothing but criticism of that attraction. Oh, this attraction is horrible. It's outdated. Mind you, it is outdated. It needs work. The audio animatronics could have done much better. But at the same token, these same people that when they make the announcement that this date is going to be the official closure date of Dinosaur. Oh, why are they getting rid of Dinosaur? This is like a Don writes in, and you have like a line from like as far as the eye can see for like a 5-hour wait for this thing because it's closing. And it's like, weren't you the one that was knocking it saying they need to do something better with it?
Well, and this is the thing too. God, I hate doing this because I get myself in trouble. Yeah. But this is the thing too, right? Where it's like, I get it, like, because a lot of people are complaining, like, we need to add stuff. And I agree, add stuff, don't demolish. But this area, this Dinoland area, is really cheap looking. I think it really kind of brings down the park. I think Animal Kingdom deserves better. I really fell in love with that place. And then you turn the corner and you go into this area that looks like DCA 1.0. Come on, we can do better. So I understand the idea and the concept of like, okay, we need to add capacity, like, and not bulldoze and rebuild, or not bulldoze and add. I understand that, and I agree with that. But with this area, I think aesthetically and just overall, it really does bring down the park a little bit. You need to address it. You can't just leave it like that. It's time for it to go.
Yeah,
it's absolutely time for it to go. Now, Seymour, I know you're more of a normie with the parks. You're not, as in deep in with this kind of stuff. But I mean, what are your thoughts on this overall, news that they're filing permits to kind of expand at least Animal Kingdom so far?
I have a few points. One point is that Disney has been doing this over 50 years in Florida, so like they have a track record. So I trust their judgment, and also they're one of the biggest data companies in the world, so they can see the data points in the parks with the wait times and how long it, like if it breaks down and how long does it take to get it back up. They have that data point. So when you were talking about how people weren't really liking this attraction, only once they heard that they're getting rid of it, like Disney can see that. Disney has all that data. They can see which attractions are not good or not. And also, secondly, I lost my train of thought. Secondly, Disney, right? I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. No worries. Go ahead, Slimer.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Seymour. With regard to CapEx into this park.
Oh, I remember now.
Okay, go ahead.
We talked about in previous videos how we always want to know what's Disney's plans, but like we don't know those. We don't need to know those plans. These plans that we're seeing now, they've been thinking about this for years, and we don't even realize it. Nowadays with social media, everyone wants to know right away, what are you going to do with the parks? What are you going to do with the parks? Are you doing anything with the parks? Why are you only focusing on international and not domestic? They are. We just don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Same thing with movies and TV shows. There's probably a lot of things we don't realize have been cut, and then a lot of things that have been brought back. We don't know, and I'm okay with that.
And you brought up a really good point, Seymour, about that, because I had mentioned that in a prior video. It's like with the way social media works is like it puts all the information out at once. So us as Disney fans, us as a Disney community, it's like we want to know. I call it the Veruca Salt syndrome. It's like we want it now. It's like we have to know now. We want to know every nook and cranny of detail. And it's like, that's not Disney's MO. That never was them. When they're ready to say something, they'll say it. And it's like people just got into the mentality of, okay, well, because we have social media, what's your excuse? Well, there is no excuse to the fact of that's not why Disney is utilizing the social media. It's like they're just utilizing it, to get information out when they're good and ready. It is not for us to know every step of the way. Otherwise, we would be part of the blue sky process. So when Damaro does get up on stage and gives us those god-awful shoulda, coulda, wouldas, it's like then people are on his back about it, but yet you want to know what the definite side of it is. Well, there's time and process that goes into the blue sky process. To make these attractions does not happen overnight. It's just like making a television series or a movie. It doesn't happen within a few weeks. It doesn't even happen in a few months. Sometimes it could take 5 to 6 years for a movie to be released. Same with a television show, depending on like how big it is or what the logistics are. It goes the same way with theme parks. But go ahead, Slimer. You had a question for Seymour.
Yeah, about I think it was CapEx.
Oh yeah, well, two things, George. I want to just piggyback off of what you just said. Yeah, there's a difference between being a fan, and there's a difference between being a toxic fan. And these like I want the world and I want it now fans, they're not healthy Disney fans. They're not even good for themselves. They don't even know it. They got to lay off the caffeine. But they're like it's kind of like tweaker behavior. I'm sorry, like if you're in the audience watching this show right now, I'm sorry, you're acting like a tweaker. Quit acting like a tweaker.
Exactly.
But secondly, Mr. Seymour, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of data points they're looking at. They probably have terabytes of data points in order to make these multi-billion-dollar capital expenditure expenditures into these parks. But let's say you were the president of the animal kingdom and you wanted to invest, capex into the park. Throw me just a really, I mean, you're basically bouncing this off of nothing, right? But throw me a number that you invest in Animal Kingdom out of that $30 billion.
Oh, okay. I would have to look at those numbers. Though with the data, and if the 30 billion, I would have to check.
What about you, OG?
What would I spend on Animal Kingdom?
Yeah,
I think, oh man, out of 30 billion,
to get Animal Kingdom out of the hole for the next 10 years.
I think if you did, honestly, well, see, this is the thing. I love that park. I think if you put maybe 1.5 billion into that park, that'll get you rid of Dino Land, kind of put a new land in there, and that's a good amount of money. That'll get you like a Galaxy's Edge or a Pandora basically in there. I think that park is good for a while. I don't think that park needs, a lot of people might disagree with me on that. A lot of people think it needs a lot more. I'm not really, and this is the thing though, keep in mind, audience, like I'm not a ride person. Like I'm not that I'm not a ride person, but I'm not someone that has to go on 30 rides a day, where I'm just like move. I'm the kind of guy where I go to Animal Kingdom, and that's why maybe I like that park so much. It's more atmosphere, more chill, more like you take it in, you soak things in. So for me, that part doesn't need a whole lot more for me personally, So if you added like a billion or a billion, like a billion five, like 1.5 billion, and give us a nice immersive land, get the Indiana Jones thing, I think that park is good for a while. I don't think you need to spend a huge amount with Animal Kingdom. I really don't. What do you think, George?
So for me, I would definitely, go the route of replacing Dino Land. As much as I do love the concept of dinosaurs, unfortunately Disney doesn't really have anything more to go on with it. They tried to leg it out as much as they can, but unfortunately it's time for that land to be extinct. No pun intended. But so yeah, put some IP in there, maybe put an attraction or two, like they're going to, obviously. What I would do is expand the park out more, and I do get on Disney's behalf that if the more that they expand it out already, the park is already at 500 acres, so it's like if you go too, extravagant, it's like how many acres can one person walk in a day, and you really feel it when you walk in Animal Kingdom. But if they were to expand outward, within the perimeters of the park itself, I do like the way that they're adding like new territories that would involve animals, sort of like how they're gearing towards South America and the South Pacific, and they can add more of that quality to it. Because I would still love Animal Kingdom to maintain its natural organic style to it. I don't want to see 5 new lands added where it's strictly IP, but it throws it out of the element of what makes Animal Kingdom so unique.
Yeah, you don't want to throw that balance off, because you're right. When you walk into that park, it's crazy. Like it's super organic, and I love that about that park. And if you start inserting all these lands now that pull away from that, you change the whole DNA of the park.
Yeah, I would love to see a new nighttime show. Obviously, the show would have to cater to not having pyro or anything to affect the animal habitats and what have you, which is perfectly fine.
You can do drones or something,
Yeah, I definitely think that the park needs to stay open later. They need to have a reason to keep people in there, because the park at night is gorgeous. It's beautiful. If you were to see Pandora at night with the bioluminescent forest, and if they have different other areas that they can expand that can showcase the nighttime aspect of Animal Kingdom, I think would be great. Also, I'd pay a couple million just as an incentive just to keep that fucking Zootopia show out of the Tree of Life, because I'm 100%. Sorry, that is just like downright insulting. I'm sorry, Imagineers. Really I'm really sorry. Bruce Vaughn, Bubby, please. Like anything, just if you want to cancel something, cancel that project because, I mean, even to the fans, they didn't even seem like they were going for it. It's not that they weren't into Zootopia, but to put that into the Tree of Life, it doesn't fit. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
There are 30 other attractions that I'd rather replace than that one.
Yes.
I mean, that's the top of your list, really. Like, that's on the bottom of my list. Actually, that's a ride you just can't touch anymore. Like, it's so good, in my opinion. That was an instant classic as soon as it came out. But
I'm right there with you. I mean, to have like the IP of A Bug's Life, because bugs are found in like the roots of trees. They're found, you know, it's like it fits perfectly to be an honorary bug. And then Hopper flies in. And it's like, you know, you're befriending these humans. They want to destroy us all. And it's like, I want to walk into a tree and I want to see an oversized fox, rabbit, and chunky cheetah. And it's like, what? How does that even?
Well, that doesn't even bother me so much with the rabbit and stuff. It's just more once you get in there, then you see a cop car. That's where I can even deal with the chunky cheetah and all that because they're all animals, they eat whatever. But like the rest of it, I mean, I guess it all depends on execution at the end of the day. But it's just that there are issues with that. We'll see what even happens.
And even into my mind, I'm kind of hopeful of that because it almost seemed like it was nails on a chalkboard for Bruce Vaughn to even make that announcement.
Well, and we'll get into this tomorrow. And Seymour, I got one question for you. Actually, a money question for you. So in just a second, but real quick, George. That's the thing that I've been telling people today with this whole Tiana thing. We're going to do a video on it tomorrow, right?
Right.
At Disneyland, they're retheming the store, the Briar Patch, to Ray's Berets or whatever they're calling it, and they're making moves. But here's the thing: people are kind of, you know, I threw it out there. Hey, you know what? I mean, maybe this character is in the attraction. And people are kind of like scoffing, like, well, no, they said that it's a sequel and this, that, and that. And that's true. They did say that. But people forget this guy, Bruce Vaughn, came in right in the middle of it. And if this guy has a lot of clout. Believe me, Iger spent money to draw this guy back in. Okay, this guy was not like retired. He was making major moves outside of Disney. He drew him back into the company, right? And if he didn't like what he saw with his attraction, you don't think he's going to make some changes? And then aren't they also going to have the I think it was actually Theme Park Wizard who shared it in one of the DMs or something about the voice of Facilier is gonna appear. I think it's like this week or something at some New Orleans event.
He's going to be part of a like a type of press release type of thing, which I thought was kind of interesting. Why would you have a voice actor who has supposedly no part of the attraction whatsoever, but you're going to showcase him in this kind of like press release kind of thing? That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying like this is going to happen. I'm not saying Facilier's in the ride. I'm not saying that Ray as a Firefly is in the ride. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying as a fan, we should like be a little open-minded, not jump to conclusions, because we did have a management shift halfway through this thing. And there might be changes, you know what I'm saying, to the storyline. And if we kind of go back because of with this proxy battle with Peltz and Rizzullo, a lot of old archives got dug up because Rizzullo is like in this conversation in the equation about his vision of New Fantasyland, where every single area was a Disney princess meet and greet. You know, we were going to have Cinderella's French chateau, and we were going to have Sleeping Beauty's woodland cottage in the woods, and it was all just meet and greets where it was like, okay, they showed us the concept art. They even made the official announcement at the very first ever D23 Expo back in 2009. Sure enough, you know, oh, it's set in stone. You know, that's what we're getting. That's what it is. Lo and behold, Staggs clicked his finger. Boom. There we got Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Right. Exactly. So I'm just saying, fandom, just have an open mind. The gift shop with Ray on it might be an indicator that maybe they've altered the storyline from what we last heard. That's all I'm saying. And it might not. It could just be him on the gift shop sign to sell merch. It could be as simple as that, and maybe that's what it is. All I'm saying is just, you know, maybe not though, right? Maybe not. Before we close out,
before we close that out, I'm sorry, OG. You had to say like maybe like 5 different times, and we just.
That's true. Hey, you know, our friend Maybe, we love Maybe. Here we go.
'Cause I'm that girl that drives you crazy, but you're killing me alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe alone, got you thinking maybe.
Oh, there we go for Miss Maybe. Now, Seymour, I want to end the show with one question for you because you're the financial guy, and this was kind of breaking today, and we were kind of talking about a little bit in the DMs or what have you. Disney and CEO Iger get backing of proxy advisory firm Glass Lewis in battle over the board. What are your thoughts on this? And we might do a video. We might do a video on this, like in deep dive. But like in short, what are your overall thoughts? Because not a lot of people are talking about this on X. I'm actually very surprised.
Yeah, they're not. I'm not surprised though. You know that Simpson meme where the kid's pointing and he says, "Stop! He's already dead. Let go." That's basically what happened to Peltz.
Shit, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, hey Seymour, we did a video. I think it was like a couple weeks ago, and I think I brought it. Oh, even a week ago, maybe it wasn't even that long ago. I said maybe Peltz will drop out before the vote because this is going to get. It might be embarrassing to him if he stays in for the vote. You think that might be a possibility? Is it looking more and more like that?
Yeah, more and more now. Even today's news. It's to me. I already thought it was going to be DOA. I already thought that he was not going to win, but now this is just like the cherry on top. It's like the finishing move in Mortal Kombat. Like, yeah, you're done.
Good time.
Okay, Seymour, because you had to do a Simpsons reference, I have to throw one in there too. It's the very first episode, the Christmas special, the Simpsons roasting on an open fire, when Bart goes in and gets a tattoo and then gets it removed, and then they're all just kind of poking at him. He goes, "Ow, quit it! Ow, quit it!"
Exactly. Oh man, I'm telling you, I used to be the biggest Simpsons guy though when I was a kid though, man. Like, do you guys remember Do the Bart Man?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I used to love the Simpsons back then. I can't believe the show is still going. They haven't. I mean, it's what, like 30 seasons or something crazy like that.
35.
35. Gosh, man.
34, 35.
Yeah,
That's incredible. I mean, there's live action shows that don't even come close to that. You know what I'm saying? That's an incredible feat. Absolutely incredible feat. But gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. Really, really fun conversation today. George, I will start with you, the Italiano. If you let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. And right below the Italiano, we got Mr. Seymour Duck. Seymour, it is always fun nerding out with you, sir. If you could let everybody at home know. Yeah, absolutely. We always have a good time talking to you. And yeah, I want to have you on again, Seymour, actually, because I want to talk about this proxy thing again. And there's a lot going on with this. And we're heading into this annual shareholder meeting, so it's kind of heating up. But yeah, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Oh yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There he is. And he is almost to 1,000 followers on Twitter. Let's get this man to 1,000 followers. Actually, once he hits 1,000, maybe we'll do like a little OG55 little party on the channel or something. We'll have a good time, you know. So get this man to 1,000 followers on X. And Slimer down below. Oh, you know what? We didn't. Oh, how could I forget?
And all these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them. And all my slimers be slamming. And all my slimers be slamming. And all my slimers be slamming. And all my slimers be slamming.
Hey, it's not a Slimer show if we don't do the Slimers be sliming. So
That's
Slimer,
right.
it's always fun having you on, brother. It's always a good time. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
OG, thanks for having me on again. George, is good talking with you guys. You guys can find me on X at SlimeSquare84, and you can find me on Orange Grove 55, sometimes right here.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.
세상은 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.